About 3 years ago, we did the Amber Rush. We did a vPub that was looking at the amount of whiskey that was around Scotland and around the rest of the world, generally speaking. We looked at just how much new whiskey there was that's new from new distilleries or new whiskey from incumbent distilleries. We looked at the sheer scale of everything and we considered the ever-increasing prices. That was back in 2020, 3 years ago. And like everything, a lot has changed in those 3 years. And yet, a lot has stayed the same. The prices continue to rise despite there being more and more whiskey. This amber rush, this concept of an amber rush, this thirst for whiskey seems to continue. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future. But as enthusiasts, we're going to take another wee moment like we did back in 2020, take a snapshot of where we are today, and kind of get a handle on what's happening and how that affects us as whiskey drinkers. I'll see you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to another Thursday night. I hope you're all keeping very, very well. What are you up to on this Thursday evening, Thursday afternoon, Friday morning for some of you, no doubt. For us right now in Glasgow, it's another really hot and sticky evening. And unfortunately, the warmest place in the house right now is in front of you guys, in front of these lights and things like that. Still, regardless, I'm not complaining and I wouldn't be anywhere else. I hope you're all doing great. It would be wonderful to spend a wee bit of sacrosanct whiskey time with you all this Thursday night. I'm a wee bit tired, if I'm honest. I'll be honest with you. I'm not too tired to be able to get through an enjoyable wee session with you guys tonight, but the last couple of days I took a wee whiskey trip. I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, I was up the west coast, the western end of the mainland. I was visiting a distillery and I was very curious to try and bring a project to a head, a project that's been in the offing for about 2 years. And it's not really anything that's delayed that specifically. It's just a kind of a lack of application, let's say, mostly on my part. So what I did is, yes, we got a bit of an invite to do something about it. And I will keep everybody up to date of what's happening there in the future. We did make some significant progress. Obviously, if you're a patron, you'll hear about that first, absolutely, as you always do. But it's been a fantastic couple of days. We were treated to spectacular weather, a spectacular welcome, spectacular hospitality, spectacular vistas. And of course, when you're doing such things, you obviously get to try some spectacular whiskey too. So much fun was had. But I'm in good shape regardless. Nothing that a wee hang out with you guys and a wee pour of whiskey won't help. I've also got some bottles here off to the side. So while we won't be speaking specifically about these bottles, these aren't on theme or anything, I'm going to choose tonight's topic to uncork a few new things that's available generally out there for us in the UK, and just something to kind of break up what's going to be quite, on the face of it, a crunchy topic. But it's not going to be bleak. It's not going to be all dark. It's not going to be all bad news. This is a vPub after all, and there's always going to be a positive spin to put on things. Anyway, before we get into all of that fun stuff, as people are gathering, as people are finding their bar stools and their comfy seats for the night, pouring their glasses, whatever it may be, let me jump into the lounge and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. Good to see you all. Whiskey Straight Al is here. Good to see you, buddy. Good evening, Roy, and all the barflies. Jeff Whiskey is here too. Just rushed upstairs to grab a glass of amber to dram along. You're a star, Jeff. Good to see you, and good to see you. And Al too. Two YouTubers out there. Al in Northern Ireland and Jeff down south. Jimmy Lagg is here. Of course he is. Fantastic. He's saying, Aquavita, good evening. Looking good, my friend. Thank you, buddy. I'm probably looking a wee bit better than I feel right now. I'm looking forward to catching up in some sleep tonight. Let's put it that way. Julian Rickman is saying, thank you, Jimmy. Julian Rickman is saying, even Barfly's looking forward to some weekly whiskey fun. And it's always smashing to have you, Julian. Brilliant to see you in. Whiskey with Molly Ben is here too. Good evening, Roy. Hope you're feeling a wee bit better. I hope you've recovered a wee bit from the lurgy you were suffering from at the start of the week, buddy. It's nice to see you in here. Jerry Miller as well, saying good evening, Roy. Good to see you, Jerry. Wonderful to welcome you, Jerry, as always. And Whiskey Weekend Dram, that's Harrow is here too. Fantastic, Harrow. Good to see you. My friend Bruno Martins in Portugal is in. Gordon Fraser is here. He's saying good evening, looking fresh. Thank you, buddy. I hope you're feeling fresh too. Alistair Gray is saying good evening, Aquavita and the Barflies. And Falscraft is saying good evening, Roy. Can you tell me how official this term of amber rush is? It's my whimsy, class, honestly. It's just, the idea of a, not quite like a gold rush, but, just this glass of amber, this color that we associate with whiskey, but just the rush to be successful, to make as much of the global appetite for whiskey. There's a real rush behind it. There's a rush in terms of demand, and there's also a rush to fulfill that demand. So it's everything about whiskey, and I've just decided that the amber rush in my wee head seems to fit. I hope it makes a wee bit of sense to you, class, as well. Good to see you in, my friend. Fernando is saying good evening, Roy. Hope you're good. Glad to be here with you for another week. It's a pleasure to have you, Fernando. And my pal saying, McAllen Fine and Rare, hello, Roy. Greetings from north of you. That's right. I've just sent you a wee email, Doc. Hopefully you've just a quick question. Hopefully you've picked that up, and you and I can have a wee exchange in the next couple of days, buddy. I hope Scotland is treating you as nicely as it treated me the last couple of days. Jimmy Jazz is here. Jimmy, good to see you, buddy. Saying good evening. And Lee J saying good evening, Roy. Enjoyed Monday evening. I've still a lot to learn, lol. So Lee J and I were both involved in a blind tasting on Jim, the Whiskey Novices channel on Monday. It was really good fun. Jim brought along some really interesting whiskies for us to enjoy, and we all enjoyed them blind. Of course, with a blind challenge, it's tricky. We're all just trying to get the pass mark, and I think most of the participants on Monday night managed to get that pass mark. So Jim had 12 challenges over 6 drams, but it was just great fun, and it was good to see you, Lee J, and participate with you as well. Happy to attend the vPub once more, says Bruno Martins, and Mike Molasses is saying good evening. Danny Keenan is here. Good evening, and the Barflies from a sunny Brecon Beacons in South Wales. Glad you're getting the sunshine too as well. Malt Brother Ray saying good evening, Roy. Happy to be in the vPub once more. Good to see you, Ray. Justin Wan is in Hong Kong. Justin, just as it jumped, I touched the chat. Dangerous, and it jumps. I'll try and catch Justin again. No, sorry, Justin. Hopefully I'll catch you a wee bit later on. It's nice to have you in, buddy. Chris Brook is saying good evening. Sounds like an interesting topic tonight. Glad I could tune in live. Good to have you, Chris. Always a pleasure. And Alex, the Hogshead, is saying evening, Roy. Been sharing some drams with my soon-to-be vanmate, sipping a fantastic 2004 Amontillado Deanston. Sounds like a good one, Alex. I hope it's going down well. Rick Johnson is saying good afternoon from San Francisco Bay, and all the Barflies. Rick, fantastic. It's full 8 hours behind us, and you're participating in the chat tonight. Welsh Torres here as well, fantastic. Gerben is here. Pete Head Frank is here. Tim Hoekstra, Bruno Martins, Excess to Scotch. So many of you in and grabbing a wee seat. Sugar Kitty saying, for all those that missed it, the Whiskey Novice Blind Challenge from Monday is here. So you can click that, open it another wee tab. And if you want to stay up and participate in a wee bit more of Whiskey live streaming, you can pick up Jim's stream from Monday night as well. He's a starrer, Jim. He's finishing up for a summer break this year too. We've still got tonight and 2 more vPubs before the vPub takes a summer break. So it's not quite time for us to pop on our sombreros and beach shoes and go off for the summer, right? Douglas Young is saying, Aquavita, evening, Roy, evening, everyone. Always good to drop into the vPub. It's always good to welcome you, Douglas. Fantastic. I don't know if I've welcomed you before. If that's the first time, it's good to have you, my friend. Very nice for you to call those whiskies on Monday interesting. I would have called them weird. Weird is interesting to me, Jimmy. Douglas Ranson said, have you had a chance to try the new Green Spot wine finish, the Quail's Gate release? No, I haven't touched it at all. It's been a long time, some months actually, since I've purchased any kind of Irish whiskey, I think. Would you recommend it, Donald? Is it good? North Coast Drama, good to see you, buddy. St. Even Roy and all the barflies popping out to say hi. Early start in the morning, so I'll catch up in the replay. Good to see you in, buddy. And I'm looking forward to seeing you, I hope, with the rest of the Hallian Battalion in Glasgow in November. Justin want to say no problem. Everyone, remember to hit the like. Fantastic. Listen, it's always appreciated. We get the comments and we get the interaction, the feedback. The like buttons are super important because it tells people, that this is legitimate content. And this can be intimidating when you first drop into a vPub and you see the running time and you see me kind of being slow to kind of start things off, to kick things, waiting for people to collect and gather and things. And people think, well, what is this? The vPub is all about taking time out. It's not fast, easy grab content. It's about slowing down the way whiskey teaches us to slow down, to savor things rather than just rush into them, to be contemplative, to enjoy each other's company, and just to enjoy the things that whiskey enable for us. Most people that do invest a wee bit of time in it start to enjoy the vPub and pick up on its vibe and things. I'm very grateful to those that have invested and turned up week after week. Wonderful to see so many of you in. I would appreciate a wee thumbs up. And thank you, Justin, for pointing it out. MJ Rodden is here too, as is Sugar Kitty, as I mentioned, and Helen is here. Oh, Helen, I thought you were going to be late tonight, but it looks like you've managed to grab your seat in plenty of time. Hope you're not too weary after your marathon round-robin trip. No, I'm okay. Mildly weary. Let's go with that. Whiskey Radar Roland is saying, good evening, Roy. I hope that you're well and that you have something nice and amber-coloured in your glass. I do, Roland. And I have something that is a kind of weird relationship for me because it's from one of my favourite distilleries, arguably, depending on my mood in the moment that you ask me, it's probably could be my favourite distillery. It is a bit variable. It is a bit up and down patchy. It is batch variable, definitely. But I'm always nervous about this, that this is one of these whiskies that could suddenly just disappear. I don't make the whiskey. I only buy it, drink it, and enjoy it. Occasionally evangelise about it, share it with you. Occasionally I'll review it and write stuff about it too. But I certainly don't control. It's not my whiskey. I'm not involved. I'm just an observer. And I'm very much an enthusiast, just like you. Certainly not an expert. So anything that you hear me sharing tonight is absolutely going to be my opinion, based on my own contemplative thoughts. And it's not based on any kind of real heavy industry research. It's based on snapshots. It's based on thought. It's based on very obvious things that we can see and we can touch and we can understand. So know that's I've got to caveat all of tonight with that. But I do have some kind of interesting observations that I do want to share with you because I think it's interesting for you as well. And to be prepared, to be informed is to be prepared, right? So that idea that if we understand what's going on and we can kind of compartmentalize what's happening and understand the dynamics of why whiskey's becoming hard to get, hard to afford, or perhaps why, in our opinion, some of the distilleries are struggling, maybe with consistency, maybe with quality, maybe with engagement, all of these things. So we can look at it tonight in the context of the Amber Rush and understand it a wee bit better, I hope. But I've got the ubiquitous, lovely, mostly lovely. There have been a few dodgy batches, of course, as we all know, but generally speaking, the solid and reliable Clynelish 14 from that fantastic distillery up there in Sutherland. We all love Clynelish. I'm always a wee bit nervous about it because it's still quite affordable, Clynelish 14 right now. It's bottled at 46% ABV, but it is chill filtered. They don't tell us it's natural colour, so we have to assume that they may be using occasional colour in these bottlings. But this one does display the lovely Crayola waxiness. There's even a creaminess on this one tonight. This is a good bottle. I've been enjoying this and getting through it at a decent rate. This is a decent bottling from them. But the reason I'm nervous is that I just worry when the announcement's going to come out that this is going to go from being somewhere in the order of £50 as it is today to just, I don't know, typical Diageo, just throw a dart at a board of prices and say, oh, that's the price it's going to be. Just kind of random price that doesn't make any sense. That's what I'm nervous about. We may lose it, but as things stand right now, we've got this available to us. And while it's there, I'm grateful for it. Cheers, everyone, and welcome. Throughout tonight with the new bottles I've been buying, these new bottles I've been buying are kind of representative of the type of thing that I buy in order to fuel the vPub the type of bottles that help me with these kind of contemplative exercises that consider the things that are happening behind the scenes in whiskey, which ultimately affects the whiskey that we will eventually drink. So let's consider the Amber Rush back in 2020. When we first did this, the first video that went out, it was all about the fact that how can we be seeing price increases the way that we did in 2020, despite the fact that we were making more whiskey than we ever have? How can it be the case when we're sitting on more mature whiskey than we have ever had before? How can it be happening? And then kind of the takeaway, if you like, the summary at the end was, let's not worry about it. There's more whiskey than we know what to do with. There's going to be lots and lots of choice going forward. So typical announcement from the vPub. If you're a drinker, an enthusiast, and you don't need to worry too much, work together as a community when times are challenging, like right now. And then if things take a turn and there's less demand for whiskey, there's going to be more whiskey around and prices maybe soften, availability becomes more prolific, and we can still just relax and enjoy whatever the whiskey market is thrown at us, because there's always more whiskey, always more whiskey. However, we have to, unfortunately, adapt and change and move with the changing dynamics in whiskey. We just have to. And as much as we can be a wee bit stubborn and be a little bit emotional about whiskey, and that's understandable because whiskey is one of these things that does really connect with the emotional side of our human condition. We love the stuff. We invest time in it. We have wonderful shared moments with it, wonderful individual moments with it. We spend a lot of money on it. We collect it. We study it. It becomes very, very emotional. We do really connect with these things. And to have it suddenly taken away from us because it's suddenly not available, or because it's discontinued, or worse, just because we can't afford it anymore, kind of smarts a little bit. And there's often not a lot of sense to some of these things for us. However, I've got some theories that I'm going to share with you tonight. I'm going to try my best to kind of back up these gut feelings and these theories and things and show you what I think is happening and why we don't actually need to worry, but how in a couple of aspects we might need to change the way we think. If you're trying to get a hold of my attention tonight, I've got the chat up here, and if you're trying to ask me or comment, just type Aquavitae and I look out for that comment. I know that I only pick up a small percentage, but I do my very, very best. Multi-mission Menno's here. Good to see you, buddy. Logic and reason have little to do with it. I know that much. I know it's hard to figure out sometimes. A Grain of Malt is celebrating being a member of Aquavitae. Barflies for 38 months. You star. Thank you so much. Brilliant to have you in, Mr. McGoran. I hope things are well up in Sweden. It's great to have you, James. 'Tis my birthday tomorrow. Please enjoy a fab pour. Let's enjoy celebrating your birthday right now. I'm going to raise a glass to my pal in Sweden, James McGoran. He does not have a Swedish accent. He's a very Southern Hemisphere accent, but he's a wonderful man. Pleasure to spend time with him in Germany earlier this year. And it'd be a pleasure for me to raise a glass and say, many happy return, James. Happy birthday. Kiwi Gore is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 14 months, and he's saying, have a great one. We'll catch up and replay tonight. So Kiwi Gore and James McGoran are Barflies. They pay $1.99 a month, and that keeps the vPubs forevermore. The content on the channel, honestly speaking, ad-free. I don't like ads, so I don't need to earn money from the ad revenue on YouTube, because the Barflies more than make up for that by paying. And they get access to colourful little whiskey-themed emoji and loyalty badges and things like that. It's just good fun, and it kind of helps you colour up the chat, the whiskey chat. Keeping it ad-free is important, I believe, though. And a Grain of Malt is saying, thank you, sir. Aquavitae, much appreciated. Look at all the happy birthday wishes to our Barfly over in Sweden. Good to have you, James. Okay. This is not going to be death by PowerPoint. I'm not going to kill you with presentation, but I do have two slides that I want to show you, because these two slides will hopefully illustrate what's happening in my brain. All the little cars that are having wee mini accidents in my head and my brain right now, hopefully can be explained a little bit by me sharing two slides, just to kind of show you how I've come to view where we are in 2023 based on looking at whiskey's acceleration over the last 15 years. Jimmy Legg's bought me a dram. Thanks for reviewing that Macallan 12 on Dramface. So we put out a review every day on Dramface, every weekday, Monday through Friday. A different review goes out. There was a review earlier this week that went out on a Macallan 12-year-old, and I am so it's Dramface. I'm responsible for Dramface. It's nothing to do with Aquavita. It's a completely separate entity. So the Aquavita is here. It lives on YouTube, and all the things that happen around the community and things is in here. But Dramface is a different project, but it's a project I'm very, very proud of. I love it. The fact that Jimmy Legg is enjoying it too means a lot to me. Thanks for reviewing that Macallan 12 on Dramface. The score was high, but you nailed the issues. So that was a Wally interview. Sorry, a Wally review. So I'm sure Wally will be very, very happy that you enjoyed it, Jimmy. Thank you very much. And it's very there's a lot of overlap with what we're going to talk about tonight, definitely. Cheers to you, fella. Thanks for the dram. And thank you for your support on Dramface too. Fantastic. So I'll get these wee slides in. I want to kind of just show you this because it's interesting to me, and it does let you see inside my head a little bit, I think. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to consider the Scotch malt whiskey industry based on its size, its scale. And the easiest, most accessible way for me to consider that or to look at it is what the theoretical capacity, how much malt whiskey could be made in a year in Scotland. Okay. That doesn't mean that it is being made because the theoretical capacity of a distillery is very rarely hit. What they can achieve is very rare for that to happen. They need to run overtime and they need to run 24/7 and all of these things in order to oftentimes their theoretical capacity maximum. And, it's going to be different distillery by distillery, what they see as their maximum and what they are actually running at. However, it doesn't really matter too much because what we're going to be talking about tonight is measuring that number based on 15 years ago, today, and then take a hit point, a hard point somewhere in between the two. So it's going to be 15 years ago, then probably about a decade ago, then today's numbers. And that's going to reveal a lot. So let's have a look at this. Let's go back to 2007. Through my trusty malt whiskey yearbook for 2008, that gave us figures for 2007. Back then, Ingvar was using the IWSR numbers, and he would report on the previous year. But what I did is I went into his number of distilleries and the size that they were, and I can deduce that Scotland in malt capacity could make 242 million litres per annum. That's a lot of malt, but it's just a number. What does it actually mean? Well, it's just going to help us scale things up. Let's move 5 years ahead. Let's move to 2012 and consider how much malt was made. This is a huge increase in capacity just in those 5 years to 315 million litres per annum. So we're looking at about almost 75 million litres more. That's an increase of about close to a third. It's a huge, huge jump in those 5 years from 2007 to 2012. I hope for the people that are listening podcast style that me describing it in this way is enough for you to visualize what I'm sharing here, but it's just some wee bar charts. Let's go forward to 2021. That's today. That's the latest figures I have from Ingvar's latest malt whiskey yearbook, which is the 2023 malt whiskey yearbook. But we have 2021 figures, and that tells us that, and this has increased since, 418 million litres per annum. That's another 100 million litres in the last decade being added on top. So what we've seen in that 15 years is it's not quite double, 242 to 418, but it's getting close. And I suspect in the next year or two, it will approach double the capacity. Double in 15 years. The growth is absolutely huge. Let's look at something else, because I think this is interesting. I'm actually going to, can you, I'm still here, right? It's picture in picture. Okay, you can still see me. Let's look at the number of distilleries. 93 distilleries in 2007. 5 years later, 99 distilleries. So that there's only 6 new distilleries. So all of that growth, that extra 75 million litres in that 5 years, tells you that that's not an explosion in new distilleries. That's a huge investment in existing incumbent distilleries. That's an expansion. That's them increasing their capacity. That's them investing in their infrastructure and readying themselves for a future. What they see is huge growth in Scotch whisky interest. 2021, much more up to date. How many distilleries do we have? More or less somewhere in the order of 134 malt distilleries today. So 35 distilleries in the 10 years, 35 new distilleries in that 10-year gap. But look, over the course of 41 distilleries in total over the course of the last 15 years. And that's been added to with new distilleries coming on stream all the time. Every year, we're going to see more and more getting added on for the foreseeable future. I'll refer you to the vPub that I did on new distilleries back a few days ago. Sorry, I can't see the chat right now, but I'll move on to this next slide quickly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell you the shape of those distilleries and what size they are roughly, because this is super interesting. And this is what's going to make us have to think differently. Consider the distilleries split into 3 categories. Big, huge malt factories, if you like, if I want to be rude, but big distilleries that are greater than 10 million litres per annum. Then distilleries that are kind of medium-sized but greater than 3 million litres per annum, okay? And then distilleries that are smaller than 3 million litres per annum. And let's break it down into years. In 2007, we only had 1 distillery, Glenfiddich, that was greater than 10 million litres. In 2012, we had 3. Glenfiddich was joined by Roseisle, the new Diageo distillery up there in Speyside, and also by Glenlivet, the investment in Glenlivet, which has been invested in again since. And then in 2021, greater than 10 million litres, we have 8 distilleries. So we've got new distilleries in the shape of Dalmonic and Ailsa Bay, but we've also got huge expansions happening from the likes of Glenord, Clynelish, and also Macallan, of course. So we've got now today 8 distilleries capable of producing in excess of 10 million litres. It's pretty huge. That's a bit large-scale stuff. Then look at the medium-sized distilleries. In 2007, more than 3 million litres, we had 34. In 2012, that jumped up to 49. And in 2021, that jumped up to 55. That's significant growth there. 34, 49, 55. Let's consider distilleries, smaller distilleries, let's say, less than 3 million litres per annum, still significant output. You know, Glengoyne, if it is an example, is about 1 million litres, just to give you a sense of scale. And there's lots of Glengoyne out there. We're not talking about tiny little boutique type outfits. We're talking about still large, fairly large scale production distilleries, but less than 3 million litres per annum. In 2007, we've got 59. This is interesting what I'm going to share with you now. In 2012, 50. It drops. In the 5 years from 2007 to 2012, small distilleries, less than 3 million litres per annum, actually dropped. That's fairly significant by something close to about 20%. What's happened there? No, we didn't lose distilleries. There weren't closures. Nothing was being shut down. What's happening is that the small distilleries were expanding and becoming bigger players. It's that expansion that I talked about in the last slide. And then in 2021, strap in for this one, 79 distilleries. Incredible, right? So the first 5 years of this 15-year window, what we've seen is a reduction in the number of distilleries, small distilleries, and then in the last decade, what we can see is this massive, massive explosion of new distilleries. If I was to layer a heat map on top of that slide I just shared with you there, and if I was to go through all of the distilleries that we're sipping and enjoying today, and I was to share the ones that we're really engaging with, the stuff that's been celebrated, the things that gets written about in Dramface, the things that get celebrated on online Scotch Whisky Awards, the things that you and I are going out and buying, almost all of it would be at the right-hand side of that slide. Almost all of it, with very little overlap, would be on the right-hand side. Some overlap into the middle section, so think of distilleries like Deanston, Tobermory, Bunnahabhain. They sit in the centre, a medium-sized distillery that we're really enjoying, but most of it is on the right-hand side. Why is that? Well, it's because we're enthusiasts, of course it is. And it's because we're pursuing natural presentation, integrity whiskies. But it's also because we are frustrated with being charged more for the same, or being charged more for even less from the incumbent distillery producers. So despite this huge investment and increasing this capacity, I should open up the chat here. Despite this huge investment in opening up capacity right across the board, we're just seeing more of the same churned out from the legacy producers with very little movement, very little reinvention, and very little giving the consumers more of what they are asking for. When I say consumers, I'm talking about enthusiasts. We represent a very small sliver of whiskey consumership. I understand that. However, remember, we're not the tail wagging the dog, we're the nose of the dog more often than not. The names that are exploding in whiskey now, the names that are difficult to get a hold of, the names that are in demand, are often small producers making fantastic quality stuff, and crucially, and here's the theme for tonight, putting it out at fair prices. I'm not talking about putting it out cheap, and I'm certainly not talking about putting it out expensive. I'm speaking about fair. We need these businesses to be profitable. As long as the pricing is fair, we can understand. How do we know that the pricing is fair? Well, it's not just one distillery. We can look right across the whiskey landscape and we can measure how much whiskey, more or less, is costs to produce. And within a window, a tolerance window, we can see the distilleries that are overcharging in our eyes, and we can see the distilleries that are perhaps undercharging. And that's a real thing, and it's a dangerous thing. So I want to talk about both of those things. We need to kind of change the way we look at things. So this Clynelish is an example. It's a big concern. Clynelish is a big, decent-sized distillery. But we've got a weird thing happening here at Clynelish. We've got the 14-year-old that seems to remain at a fairly reasonable, fair price. But the actual liquid itself is becoming more and more rare and more difficult to get a hold of through independents. There's certainly not a lot of it released as an official product from Diageo. It's just a very strange thing, because there's another thing happening in the background as well. While this forecast for a continued demand puts strain on resources and puts strain on supply, there's less openness on the market. There's less cask trading. There's less selling of casks out there, especially with cask investment programs going on. I don't even want to get involved in that tonight. I'm going to try and keep things light. There's less and less of that happening. There's less of it available. It's a weird situation to be in. I'm feeling nervous about independent bottlers and things like that. So we're not just talking about distillers. We're talking about people that bottle for us from medium, small, and large distilleries in order for us to enjoy the liquid through indies as well. We're seeing a constriction put on that because of this supposed future demand. Demand on malt whiskey production on volume, or demand because of craziness like cask investment and stuff. And that is not without merit, because the spirits business put out a report just this week, thanks to Bill Linnane on Twitter through his share on Twitter. I managed to get a link, and I enjoyed reading that. And it was a drinks industry wide thing, but there was specific sections on whiskey, and there was certainly a specific section on Scotch whiskey. And they talked about the huge growth that we're seeing. And interestingly, they also talked about the huge growth in blends, as well as the category as a whole, and premium Scotch too. Volume, yes, certainly value. Of Of course it is. As the prices go up, the value goes up. Of course it does. For the first time, it broke. Scotch whisky exports broke 6 billion sterling. 6 billion. To give you an idea, when I started this channel in 2017, was the first year, I believe, that it broke 4 billion. It's quite a huge growth in just a short space of time. Very, very interesting to see. I hope that's maybe going to give you some kind of clue of where I'm going to go with this tonight. But that's the shape of the Scotch whisky production landscape right now. That's what's happening. The big players are solidifying their position and not really doing much more, but the prices are getting more expensive. The medium players are a kind of mixed bag. A lot of the medium players are very much focused on much more fair pricing and a much more natural presentation too. But if you look at the smaller distilleries, 3 million litres and less, the majority seem to be focused on feeding us, the enthusiasts. And that's where the positivity is going to come from. That's where the excitement comes from. Donald Rance is saying, the perfect example of the amber rush is Middleton. They're going through a 250 million euro expansion that will take them from 64 million litres a year. So that's Middleton will be producing malt and grains, a mix there, up to over 100 million litres a year. One distillery. That's just one distillery. Reb Mordecai is saying, have you noticed the Clynelish 14 seems to have had a bit of a recipe change? Much more ex-bourbon influence, perhaps that waxiness has been greatly reduced. The waxiness, Reb, absolutely goes up and down, up and down. What I've noticed on the most recent ones is I've seen a bump in waxiness coming back again, been enjoying it, but I've also seen a bump in oak, more oak-led flavour things. I think there's a bit more first fill bourbon in the mix to my palate. But certainly what you're talking about maybe is that there's less of a kind of sherry. Yeah, I'm not really getting much in the way of sherry on this particular glass at all. This is very much plays like vanilla cream, bourbon style maturation. Cheers, Reb. Cheers, Donald. And Multi-Mission Men are saying, and don't forget the boom in the Asian market. They don't mind paying premiums, so that'll affect prices elsewhere. Listen, it's not just the Asian market, it's the high net worth market, right, wherever they may dwell on the planet. And that's very much what Scotch whisky is chasing. Certain brands are doing the very, very best to position themselves as premium brands. Ironically, often the most premium brands are actually the least premium. It's all about branding. It's a very professional thing, and it works a treat. But at the end of the day, we know better as enthusiasts. We know where the quality is. And it's interesting to see. I'm going to read out a comment here from Jim Morse, because I think he pretty much summarises our session tonight, and see what you think of this. Jim said, I do agree. We are in a golden age for whiskey. Almost unlimited choices, new offerings. There's always something old or new and interesting to enjoy. But I think the golden age will come with problems. Exactly, Jim. He said, we spend a good amount of time in Tennessee and Kentucky. The rate increases in whiskey production is not sustainable and nothing short of shocking. As an example, Buffalo Trace literally just doubled their production in a few months when they started an identical second still house. Huge rick houses springing up everywhere. I can't believe how fast they're being built and filled in Tennessee and Kentucky will sink under the weight of aging whiskey. And there is the rest of the US and the rest of the world. I personally think we're headed for one of two things. Not sure which will arrive first. Either we run out of barrel wood or we face a whiskey glut. The rate of production increases is not sustainable in both cases. We have talked about planting oak trees on some land in the northeast US, but that might be for our great-grandchildren's whiskey. As far as a glut, a lot of the current whiskey producers, the whiskey is not currently being consumed. It's being stashed. We're hoarding, absolutely, Jim. The inventory, plus what is currently being produced and aged, will surpass global demand at some point. And he finishes succinctly with a statement saying, we are seeing a strange mix of a few focused on quality, but the majority focused on maximum production and profit. So this is inside Patreon. Usually I write something to patrons and there's a nice bit of interaction, a nice bit of feedback from the folk, the patrons in there. They have really quite informed and interesting opinions such as that. And that kind of just nicely sums up what we're all looking at here tonight. There's a strange mix of He's saying a few focused on quality, but the majority focused on maximum production and profit. I'll change that ever so slightly, and I'll say, yes, when it comes to volume, but when it comes to producers, it flips. The majority of the 134 distilleries that we see today, a small majority right now, I'll be honest with you, are changing and looking towards producing integrity whiskies. That's where the zeitgeist is at. That's where the quality is at. That's where the engagement is at. That's where fortifying Scotch whisky's reputation for the future is at, not through gilded packaging and woolly stories. I hate having a go at marketing. I spent years in marketing myself. I'm not having a go at the industry or what they do, but very much I'm going to give you some examples tonight. I've got 3 drams. I'll put my Clynelish off to the side, and I've got 3 clean glasses. I had enough whiskey last night to last me for the week, if I'm honest. So we're only going to have 3 drams tonight. Normally I would kind of maybe have just 5 glasses out in front of me and put a small measure in each, and that would do me for tonight. But I've got 3 bottles that we may be able to open tonight. Let's grab the first one here to give you an example of Jim's focused on quality type distillery. And one of the distilleries that I'm talking about, everything from this distillery is very, very young, but my goodness, it's exciting for the future. This is Lagg. Now, I've opened Lagg on the vPub before. I've opened their bourbon cask inaugural release, and I opened their sherry cask inaugural release. I didn't buy the wine cask. It's less my style of whiskey. But this is different. This is Lagg's Kilmory release. There's an interesting little, I wonder, it says 167 square miles, Firth of Clyde, Scotland. So this is the Kilmory release. Let's have a look at this. There seems to be some brown shading down the bottom. Is that deliberate? I don't know if that label is supposed to be brown. It looks, there's a bit of discoloration there. I think that's probably deliberate. But round the neck here, I've just noticed that there's a wee message written on there that says, I think that's the parish of Kilmory, maybe. Lagg, the distillery itself, Lagg is a little hamlet, and that's where the distillery is named after, Lagg, southwest Arran, but 167 square miles. Perhaps that's relating to Kilmory. I've only just noticed that. So let's get this open. Because the 2 Laggs that I purchased were £75 each. For 3-year-old whiskey, very expensive, very expensive. So it wasn't easy for me to recommend that people go out and buy it as a drinking whiskey. What I did is contextualize it to say this is a snapshot in time. We are able to sip Lagg as it is new and fresh. The alternative is that they just release nothing and keep us guessing for years. So what would we have? Some people would just want to wait. Others, like me, super excited, want to get our hands onto it. But if we want that, we need to perhaps consider paying for it. So they charge the £75 for inaugural, a bit pricey. They bring out their core release. This is their first core release. What do? They drop the price to below £50. I think I paid $49.99 for this. $49.99. The messaging on this is perfect. The messaging on the bottle is perfect because they tell us that it's non-chill filtered, it's natural colour. They tell us that it's 46% ABV, and we know that it's going to be maximum about 4 years old of that order. The box is also interesting too because it's just very matter of fact. There's no flowery wording here. That's just like that. Lagg is where it is, what it's about. They talk about they're going to focus on bourbon barrel maturation. Then they have bullet points and they tell you where it is, the ppm and the peating level, where the water source is. They tell you about double distillation, non-chill filtered natural colour, ABV. The tasting notes are just there to give you a guide, not to take anything away from what you're doing. It's perfect. It's just pitch perfect. It doesn't drown you with nonsense. It gives you what you need to know. This cannot be difficult. It can't be difficult. And yet, I'm going to give you an example in a wee while that makes you feel like, or it seem like it is difficult, right? And it's going to draw attention to what we're talking about here tonight. So this is, oh my goodness, look, it's ridiculously thick. It's young. This is young whiskey, of course. 100% malted barley, and it clings to the glass so nicely that I'm not going to be able to get that to focus on that. Oh yes, I am your beauty. Look, thick, thick, thick and oily. And I can tell you now, I suffer from peat blight. So when there's a peated whiskey around, sometimes I won't pick up the peat smoke. But as soon as I poured this glass tonight, the whole room here is filling up with really, really thick, peaty aromas. Amplified and enhanced, no doubt, by it being a young malt, so the phenols are still very, very vocal. Put your nose in the glass, and the peat smoke is still there, but there's a creaminess behind it, a lovely creaminess. ABV's in check. This is slightly lower ABV than the inaugural, come out at 50%. Very spirit forward. First fill bourbon barrels here, but still it's only 3 or 4 years old. So the casks really, it's not all, this is much more spirit driven. The creaminess is coming from the malt, I'm certain. Still quite quiet. This is just a neck pour. I've literally just opened up the bottle. The fruit is citric and lemon. Lemon zest. Sharp green apple. Creamy, inviting. Cheers, everyone. Cheers to Lagg. Okay. Still youthful. Thick, oily. So the oiliness, the oils that's in the glass there absolutely arrive lovely on the palate. Nice and warming, very clean and fresh and bright. Spirity, but it's not hot and spirity. There's not like chilly heat here. There's not a sharpness. There's not a, it's not as jagged as you might imagine. The whole experience is actually quite, you know, it's like you lick it from your palate. You lick it back off your teeth. It's oily. If you've seen the stills at Lagg, you can understand maybe why that would be. It's still there. I've got lots of kind of that lemony citric thing going on, and I've got a nice sense of being outdoors. It's quite a nice hip flask whiskey. Can we go with that? I'm going to go out there and say it. I'm going to say it. This is young. It's not as elegant as something like a Lagavulin 12, but this is the style of whiskey that it is. This is maybe even a bit more phenolic than Lagavulin 12. Certainly a bit more robust than Lagavulin 12. Not as elegant, but it's kind of like that experience in a glass. In terms of whiskey profile and in terms of style. $49.99, 50 quid. Now you might say to me, Roy, 3 and 4 year old whiskey for £50 is too expensive. It's too expensive. I know that some of you will say that. I know that you'll say that. And I hear you. I do hear you. What do you think about a bottle of Macallan 12, as Jimmy Legg mentioned tonight, at £100? 40% ABV, chill filtered. Yeah, Macallan's natural colour, fantastic. What do you think about a bottle of neutered 12-year-old whiskey for £100? We just don't touch it. We don't touch it. So why should we look at Lagg at the price that it's at? Well, because when Lagg reaches 5 years old and 6 years old, and it will still be this price. Of that, I'm convinced. The cost of putting this bottle of whiskey together is not the maturation years. It's pennies per litre per year in a warehouse. The cost is making the whiskey. And it's becoming more expensive to do it all the time. In 2020, we did not have a barley crisis like we do right now. Resources were not as stressed as they are right now. Wood, energy, human resources, people, paper, print, packaging, logistics, everything that you need to pay money for in order to make whiskey, and everything else in life is going through the roof. I'm not expecting things to be cheap I'm expecting things to be fair. And I'm going to try and make a case to you that regardless of whiskey is 3 years old or 10 years old, £50 is the modern price point for fair whiskey. That is whiskey that can afford these companies to be profitable and secure their future and be able to pay for the resources they need to continue bringing good quality whiskey towards us. I think we need to adjust a little bit. You might be able to go out and buy a good bargain malt at £25, £28, £30 at your supermarket or whatever. But know that you're being bumped over the head for the more premium stuff in order to finance the low margin, high volume stuff. The left-hand side of our slide. £25 for good quality malt whiskey is too cheap. Why? Because they cannot put it out at 46% ABV. They need to put it out at 40% ABV, the lowest ABV that they can get away with. It's not, in order to hit those price points, remember I'm speaking from an enthusiast perspective, it's not possible to do that. Justin Wan is saying we shouldn't be judging whiskey on age, should we? If it's good enough, it's old enough. I'm telling you right now that that's absolutely the case. The way that whiskey used to be made, absolutely, Justin, that, especially the way that the industry taught us over years, the way that whiskey's been made in the past, usually looking to hit checkpoints for efficiencies perspective, broad brush speaking here, but that yes, age statement was a huge part of measuring the investment based on the investment of the producer. Today, that's a wee bit different because I guarantee you this Lagg that I'm sipping right now is not made in the same way as those whiskies that have gone from 3 million litres per year to 5 million litres a year to 10 and 11 plus million litres per year. That's the kind of growth and expansion that we've seen. Diageo, the likes of Clynelish, 2.68 million, 5 million, 10 million. Glenord, 3 million, 5 million, 11 million litres. That's in the space of the 15 years window that we're talking about tonight. Whiskey Weekend Dram Harrow saying dry herbs with water, even licorice for me, Acrovite. Great dram. Better than batch 2 and 3 of the first ones. So you've already got the Kilmory. Oh, Harrow, you're spot on with the aniseed. Wee bit of licorice aniseed in there, absolutely. Dry herbs. You're suggesting adding a wee bit of water. 46% ABV. Should do exactly that. Let's just put a couple of drops in. And while we let that settle, we're going to experiment a little tonight. What do you think about playing around a bit? In front of me, I've got a thermos. I've got a Yeti mug here. And I've put some ice cubes in it. It's been here for a while. I'm going to use these ice cubes tonight because it's warm. Put it in my water. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this wee bucket of ice. I'm going to pour big old dollop of 46% ABV Lagg over this ice. Now there will be water in here, so it will be diluting it as well because the ice has been sitting here and it's melted a little bit. But we're going to do that. By the way, I don't know what's going to happen here. I've no idea. Obviously, I've just literally opened this in front of you tonight, so it could be affected or it might not. So what we're doing is we're diluting and chilling. Because it's non-chill filtered whiskey, it's not guaranteed to be so, but you would expect that what we will see is that as the whiskey's chilled and the dilution is brought down below 46% ABV, we're going to see those fatty oils, those long-chain fatty acids, everything come out of solution and clump. And that will give us, hopefully, some Scotch mist. Right, that's mostly water. I should have drained the water away first. Sacrifice a wee bit more malt whiskey. Why am I doing this? Because natural whiskey behaves in such a way. I don't doubt for a second that this is natural whiskey. Lagg tell us that it's so, therefore it is so. Non-chill filtered means it's non-chill filtered. And let's see. Yeah, we can see. I hope you can see that too. Well, instead of having a clear, polished whiskey like it is in the glass, nice and bright and shiny, what we have here is cloudy. It's almost gone the colour of lemonade. How's the flavour? Still plenty peaty. The herbs that's been pointed out by Harrow, that's a peach. So you're getting a wee bit of sage even in here. Dried kitchen herbs, love it. Love it when we get a nice dry herby note. It's chilled, it's cold. What a difference it makes. Cold, still very, very pleasant. Still a lovely drink, honestly. A chilled whiskey. Maybe not as flavorful, but still capable of putting out all that smoke, all that freshness. Like I say, the aniseed and dry herbs that Harrow picked up. Dan Thompson's bought me a dram to say, just popped in to say hi. Early start in the morning, long drive to Campbelltown. Oh, you lucky man, Dan. I hope you enjoy yourself. We'll catch a vPub on replay. Have a good weekend. Have a good weekend to you. I think you'll have a cracking time down in Campbelltown, Dan. Cheers. And my friend Daniel Williams in the Netherlands has gifted 5 Aquavitae memberships tonight. Thank you for your generosity, Daniel. Fantastic. Brian Cabayas is saying, thanks for the recommendation of Lagg Sherry Cask. What a dram, it blew me away. Love it. Down to less than half a bottle now, I think. Really enjoying the Sherry Cask from Lagg. Really exciting stuff. Some of the most exciting new whiskey out there. I shouldn't have been so hasty to judge Lagg the first time I ever had a dram at the Bon Accord. I'm glad I went back again and tried it again. Chris Brook is saying, I hope we'll start to see Lagg in Ontario soon. We recently got the whole Arran range, which I'm loving. And as someone who prefers Wee Beastie over our Big Ten, I do enjoy a younger peated malt. Okay, so what we've been able to do is we've been able to demonstrate that oils and things and natural whiskey will make the whiskey go a wee bit cloudy, a wee bit misty. And depending on the malt, you'll see it happening really quite easily and really quite significantly. It becomes really quite opaque. And other times it just kind of goes a wee bit hazy. This one's about somewhere in between. This is kind of medium hazy tonight. Play around at home. Why play around at home? Well, let's park our Lagg for a second and look at something else that I have not tried, but I was really excited about and I do want to try, but I'm suddenly a wee bit nervous. Got another clean glass and I've got another tumbler here to do the exact same experiment, but this time we're going to do it with a brand new release from a brand new distillery. This is Glenglassaugh. Now I hear you. You're going to say, Roy, wait a minute, Glenglassaugh, that's a 19th century distillery. What are you talking about? Well, I'm telling you that in 1986, Glenglassaugh closed its doors. It was part of the whiskey black years in the 1980s. We lost Glenglassaugh. It closed down. It was brought back to life in 2008. And then in 2013, Billy Walker and the Benriach Company took over. When there was initial releases, Revival, Evolution, Torfa, under Billy Walker's stewardship, all the whiskey we knew was very, very young. We knew it was young, but we witnessed, especially that evolution, we witnessed it getting better and better and better. 50% ABV as well. Now, we believed it to be, as they told us when it was first released, that it's natural whiskey. Fantastic. Now we've got 12-year-old Glenglassaugh. This new distillery is actually a revived distillery, but this is new whiskey. They're not overaging this with old stock from previous times. Like I say, it was closed in 86. We view Glenglassaugh today as something of a new distillery, a Renaissance distillery, something that's been brought back to life. This is exciting. And the scale that it's at puts it towards the right-hand side of things. It's a fairly small concern. I can tell you that Glenglassaugh's capacity, as things stand today, is in the order of the exact same size as Glengoyne, about 1 million litres. Let's have a wee pour of our Glenglassaugh. Pour it into this glass. Very dark colour. Suggests a lot of very active casks here. But we can't discuss the colour. We can't talk about it. It's been robbed from us. Why? Because there's nothing on this bottle that tells me that this is naturally coloured. So I need to make a direct inquiry. I need to go beyond the bottle or the box even and make a direct inquiry to find out if they're colouring it or not, which is just nonsense. So I look at the box. There's lots of information on the box. Good, exciting stuff. Let's read out what's on the box. Now, remember the Lagg box. Very clean, direct, straightforward, exactly what we need. Here we go with the Glenglassaugh box. A taste of Glenglassaugh is a pull to the lush shores of Sandend Bay, where the curving copper stills and dark casts of oak, a coastal single malt is, oh my goodness. Soft rolling surf sweeps across scattering of ancient harbour towns. Dolphins play, gannets dive. What? This isn't telling us anything. It's utter garbage. You could, anybody that can put together words. This is just a word salad of copy and paste marketing. It's really, really, really poor. It's very poor because it doesn't tell anybody anything. But let's remember that slide that I put up there. This is in the right-hand side of the slide in terms of scale and size, but it's pointing towards the left-hand side of that slide. It's pointing towards mass market. But it's a 1 million litre revived distillery that we're so excited about. And I guarantee you there's been a lot of work and effort being put into making this a good whiskey. But it tells us nothing. Nor does it tell us whether it's chill filtered or not. So let's drain our water out of my iced mug here. So I'm going to, because of the Lagg that's in this mug, I'm going to turn our Glenglassaugh into something quite peaty, right? Potentially. Let's pour our Glenglassaugh over ice. Let's cool it down and see what happens. See if we can get some reassuring Scotch mist to appear. Because if it appears, that will tell us that it's either non-chill filter or it's been very lightly or sympathetically filtered. If it stays nice and polished and clear, well, we know that it's been neutered. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't really necessarily change or make the whiskey unpleasant. It doesn't really do anything particularly terrible. But what it probably does is it robs us, maybe not a lot of aromas, but it robs us from flavour, certainly. We know that from our own experience through sipping hundreds of whiskies. We might not be able to tell comparing non-chill filter against filtered next to each other, but over our time and our experience with whiskey, we fall in the preference of natural whiskey, and it certainly affects mouthfeel. Hopefully you can see it's just every bit as clear and as polished. Maybe it's harder to see through the thicker glass. Maybe there's a wee bit of a difference you can see in maybe it's gone a wee bit cloudy actually, look. It has gone a wee bit misty there. So there might be something of encouragement there. So why do I have to play with ice? Why do I have to do these things and kind of guess or write an email or something? Or tasting notes on whiskey bottles are usually rubbish, says Hoyt Hemphill. It often can be the case. And certainly it's nice if they just give you some suggestions of profile or whatever on the box so you know what the whiskey is potentially, but then you can make up your own mind what it actually tastes like. Cal Whiskey is saying it's natural colouring. Thank you. So it's natural. This is a natural colour. So these active casks that I commented on, that's good to know. I'm looking at the small print now. Glenglassaugh 12 years embodies our signature coastal style, matured in bourbon, sherry, and red wine casks. That's good information. Luscious waves of ripe fruit carried on an ocean breeze. Okay. So they're playing the coastal highland thing, which is fantastic. It is a coastal highland distillery. That's a cool pour there. I've obviously been chilling that one. Salted caramel, absolutely. A nice ripe fruit, rich fruits, much richer than the fresh fruits of the Lagg. Oh, we're getting some nice, a nice spice here as well. So let's go with the ABV here. Okay, it's a wee bit thin. Doesn't quite have the coating of the Lagg, but that's okay. It's actually quite it was very pleasant whiskey. I was maybe thinking with a lot of active oak here and the profile of the oak, I thought we would be getting a lot of kind of sweet and sickly oak notes, but no, it's actually okay. It's really quite nice. It's quite balanced and in check. But the cutoff for filtration, non-chill filtration, is usually 45.7%. So anything 46 and above is usually a reassurance that there's a good chance it could be natural whiskey. But in this case, they've chosen to bottle it at 45% ABV. So it may be Cal whiskey, thank you very much. It may be natural colour. Why is it not made it onto the bottle? It may be that it's non-chill filtered. And in fact, if you look at this, if you look at the two things together, I would say that this has actually hazed over a wee bit. Maybe just a wee bit, ever so mildly. So it might be that it's chill filtered a wee bit. It might be it's just sympathetically chill filtered. But why don't we have that information? And if you're going to go at 45% ABV, why not just go 46 and just not chill it at all? It's 1% of a difference. Are you telling me that 45% makes it accessible to a mass market, but 46 excludes it? It's weird, and there's no information on the bottle to explain to me, or the box even, why those decisions have been made, instead of to think about dolphins and gannets and ocean breezes. Now, I'm excited about Glenglassaugh. I'm excited about the fact that they're alive again, that they're making whiskey, and I'm excited about a good, solid core range. A 12-year-old fantastic, just so close. They've also got the port soy, which is a much higher ABV. It looks like natural whiskey. It's non-age statement, and they've got the sand end as well, and one of them's peated. They're all using a mix of bourbon, sherry, and some kind of wine, port or something. I just wanted the core range 12 years. That's the one I was going to hone in on. I've seen an age statement back again on Glenglassaugh. It's truly something to celebrate. It's fantastic. And I was gutted when I saw that it was at 45% ABV and it was presented as a natural whiskey. That was the most I've laughed at anything you've ever said, Jimmy Legacy, and I wonder what I said to make you laugh. Perhaps they used AI to generate their marketing, says Mike Molasses. That's right. And Justin Wanna saying, oh my God, chill out, Roy. I'm worried about your health. I'm worried about the health of whiskey, Justin. Danny Keenan is saying, here's to the gannets and dolphins of this world. Cheers, Roy. He's bought me a dram as well. Well, cheers to you, Danny. Thanks very much for the generous dram. I hope you had a wee laugh like Jimmy did too. Cheers. Actually, it's such a hot night. I'm enjoying playing with the ice tonight. Cool whiskey is, we don't need to analyze every single dram that we ever pour, right? Sometimes it's nice just to sit and have something that tastes nice. And out of a tumbler, a cool drink of malt whiskey is a really, really pleasant thing. And I have to say, it's so close, right, in terms of, but the whiskey itself is actually coming across quite nice. Everything's in check, it's in balance. There's no obvious kind of cask notes in any direction. It's not overly sherry. I think there's a wee bit of sherry kind of things that you would associate with sherry in here. But it's fresh and bright and clean. Balanced is a really good word. Wow, what a difference sipping the warm whiskey after the cool whiskey. So there is oak notes there. There are oak notes there. Going to be one. Remember these, and you can never judge a whiskey by a neck pour. You can never do that. You have to spend a wee bit of time with it. So I always have to caveat the fact that when I'm doing uncorking, it's always going to be a neck pour. It can give you a very good, fairly vivid image, but it's just not fully focused. Jimmy Legacy saying, yes, I do sit and analyze every whiskey I pour, Roy. I guarantee you, buddy, when you come over here to Glasgow and you're socialising and you're chilling, you're going to get through glasses of whiskey and you will not remember a single sip. The whiskey takes you there, then it drops into the background and lets you enjoy the whiskey company, the whiskey atmosphere, the whiskey folk. But Jimmy, you're spot on. If that's the way you're doing it, that's the way you're doing it, buddy. Barris is saying, would you recommend us to hoard the evolution? No, I wouldn't recommend anybody hoard anything. The way you hoard whiskies is, if you've got something that you know you're going to miss, it's going to be taken away from you, and it's become something that's really, really special, you make sure you've got a backup bottle perhaps too. And there are lots of people out there that do that, and you can't knock anybody for doing it. But there's always going to be more whiskey. And the more that you become loyal to something, the more that a brand or a whiskey or something gets its claws into you and kind of wants you, and you start to hoard it, that's when you're leaving yourself open to abuse. All brands, not just in whiskey, but all brands will charge you for your loyalty. If you are loyal to something and you love it, you will soon get to the point where you're forced to pay for it. If you remain open, curious, fickle, volatile, whiskey promiscuous, you can protect yourself from that financial abuse. I hope that helps a wee bit, Barris. I hope it helps you. Graham Fraser saying, even around Barflies, I'm just home from work and I hope that everyone is well. So we're in an interesting situation today. What's my point here? What is my point? As Barris and I have just touched upon, being open, being adaptable, looking to the future and seeing how we can avoid these types of things happening to us, being overcharged. I am making that decision week by week. You saw my decision. I'm not boycotting and I'm not protesting. I am disengaging. All of the brands that you see making huge leaps towards premiumization, towards charging much more money for the exact same product, maybe just a slight tweak to the branding or making it a bit sharper looking or something, a new box design, but not changing anything about the liquid whatsoever. Some of those are going to be things that you've loved in the past. They will be Lagavulin, they will be Talisker, they may be Aberlour, and dozens of other potential brands that we're going to see marching off into this premium market. But as I've just shown you, from the numbers involved, as they increase in capacity and move up market, that's becoming very, very crowded. All the big players are up there, all the 10 million plus litre capacity, all the 6, 7, 8 million litre capacity distilleries, they're all in a rush to meet at that end of a very busy market, leaving what for the enthusiasts and the people in love with the liquid and love with the engagement and enjoying sharing and drinking and talking about it and studying it and all of those things. Well, it leaves an explosion of a much more granular style. Lots and lots of small distilleries that know in order to do the best that they can, what they have to do is connect with enthusiasts first. Get us drinking it, get liquid on lips, get us talking about it, get us sharing it, and get us buying it up. I know that for a lot of you out there, if you're in North America, if you're in certain parts of Europe or further afield, Asia, whatever, wherever you may be tuning in from, you're not seeing a lot of these yet, but they are coming, and they are coming fast, and they are many. How do we prepare for that? We have to also adapt, not just changing by disengaging and relying less on loyalty, but we have to be ready to pay. Do not pay the prices for Talisker 18. Do not pay £100 for a bottle of Macallan 12. It's ludicrous. It's farcical. Pay the fair price for good quality whiskey. And I think where we're sitting in 2023, I reserve the right to change my mind very, very quickly, but that is now somewhere in the region of the high 40s, around about £50. Age statement is having less and less of an impact on that right now. But I think as the age and the whiskey matures, we're going to see hopefully that price solidify. Bit disappointed by it in Sterney. Rylaw is far too expensive, so we're not talking about it. Bit disappointed by, honestly speaking, some releases from other producers out there that are Wolfburn brought out their 10-year-old, fantastic. They charged that £65 is too much. £50 should have been the price. Yes, it makes it the same price as their non-age statements, but sorry, in order to back up what I'm saying here, in order for us to invest in their non-age statement stuff up front, they have to repay us and not abuse our loyalty. When the age statement is ready, they bring it out at the same price. because it didn't cost them that much more to make the 10-year-old. £65 is too expensive. I've said it before in the vPub. I'm a bit annoyed and frustrated at Annandale. I can never connect with Annandale. I don't know how to connect with their product. They've got a different model. It's just this nebulous thing that I can't connect with. There's lots of exceptions, so I'm broad brushing a lot of things. But if we are willing to step up as enthusiasts and say, I want natural whiskey, I want them to tell me that it's natural, that they haven't added anything to it, caramel colour. I want them to tell me that they've not removed anything from it by chill filtration. I want them to bring us something at a decent ABV so that we can benefit from the wonderful delivery mechanism that is slightly higher ABV. Flavour delivery mechanism. We would also like a wee bit of transparency. You don't need to go against SWA regs. Tell us, give us a guide of what makes up the whiskey. We can work out the edges, especially with new distilleries. Follow the Ardnamurchan model with your QR code on the back. Do something like that. Transparency. Share your product. Share your information, because I know you're excited about it. It's not difficult. How did Glenglassaugh get so close? I would love to have been a fly on the wall, a barfly on the wall in the board meeting that decided to bring this out at 45% ABV and celebrate having 12-year-old whiskey after being closed for 20 years. And now they've got 12-year-old whiskey again. How did they get to the point where they just said, 45, that'll do? Yeah, let's not tell them it's natural colour. Let's reserve the right to add a bit of caramel if in future we need to. The casks are, become refill and they're not as active. And yeah, let's. I just don't know. I just don't know. So I remain frustrated, but pleasantly surprised that it's actually a decent wee whiskey, a decent pour. The problem is the price. The problem is the price. If you go on to buy a Glenglassaugh today, $12-year-old, the one I've just spoke about, it's 50 quid. £50. 12-year-old whiskey is £50. 3-year-old whiskey is £50. We need to get our head around. Springbank 10 is £50. Edredale 12 is a wee bit more expensive. Yeah, Springbank 10 is probably a wee bit more expensive here and there as well. And of course, I'm speaking about something that often you can't get. We need to get our head around this idea that a bottle of malt whiskey, whether it's going to be 3 years old or 13 years old, is going to cost that to make. And when we are picking up things that are much cheaper than that, we need to see that that's because the distillery has the scale in order to achieve such a thing, because they have the presence, because they have the depth of stocks or whatever. But what we have to be careful of is that, are we financing these super razor thin margins, these really, 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 really difficult, very, very low price, far too cheap, £25 supermarket type pricing? I think that if we're going to want these quality things, I think if we want Scotch whisky and all whisky to be good quality going forward, I think we do need to put ourselves in a position that we are going to need to drink a wee bit more higher quality and drink less quantity, and allow these companies to put out fair products and make a fair profit and make money. Graham Fraser saying, interestingly, Roy Annandale do have half bottles of some of their single cask bottlings, 2 for less than the price of a single bottle. Yeah, again, the nebulous thing is there. I just don't understand. Good tip though, Graham. Anthony Lambert is saying, easy, more all production of Scottish whisky over here to Germany. And then they would have to declare if there's added colour, mit Farbstoff. Absolutely. Why is it not law everywhere else? It just makes sense. And maybe the price would come down as well. Jimmy Lagg is saying Springbank's capacity will probably never change, at least not in my lifetime. I can tell you that Springbank's capacity has been static so there are distilleries out there that have had static capacity. Springbank, Glengoyne, many, many more. And they are open. They're constrained because of the position, the location, because of various other reasons. There are distilleries that have been static, and there's distilleries that have had huge growth and expansion: Glenfiddich, Glenlivet, Glenord, Clynelish, and so many more of these big companies. Ailsa Bay, brand new distillery. It's not even, it was a new distillery within the last 15 years, and they've gone through, I think, 2 expansions in the space of that 15 years. And then there's everything in between with kind of steady, much more organic growth, the likes of Glenfarclas that went from 3 million to 3.4 to 3.5, this kind of steady type growth. Surely that's a much more healthy thing. Surely that's much more kind of, I don't know. Jimmy Legacy, sorry, I picked that one up. Willie Buchanan, good to see you, Willie. I just let them march on. I say just let them march on. That's right. That's exactly the mindset that we need to have. If they decide, because we don't make the whiskey, it's not us, it's not ours. It is our whiskey, actually. It's our whiskey. Yes, we don't make it. We just need to kind of say la vie, just need to say goodbye, and just let it go. Maybe it'll come back. Maybe we'll decide not to take it back. Maybe it'll just be we're so distracted by all the other choice that's out there that we really don't care anymore. Justin Wan is saying that's exactly it. Reserve the right to change the recipe in the future. If they don't put it on the label, Justin, that's exactly right. So suddenly they get a batch that hits the flavour points, but it's paler. So they say, okay, we need to add colour to this now. Rather than just embrace the fact that it's malt whiskey, instead of telling us about dolphins and gannets on the label, explain to people that this is natural whiskey. The colour is derived from the cask, which is a natural organic product in itself, and that may change over time. And then tell them that because it's a natural product, that the fats and the oils can sometimes clump if the whiskey or the liquid is chilled or diluted. It's a perfectly natural thing, and we hope you enjoy this natural product in all its natural glory. Put that on the label instead of telling us about coastal breezes. Donald Rance is saying, here in Walker, here in Canada, that makes JP Weiser's Lot 40 is expanding from 53 million litres to over 75 million litres. And herein lies the crux, Donald. Because what we're seeing is all of Scotch whisky's export markets are starting to grow and take care of their own domestic markets, quite separate from all of the Scotch whisky investment, which means that they will naturally, the domestic markets will then cannibalise this potential export for Scotch. Meanwhile, the Scotch whisky forecasting is all based on us grabbing these bottles and hoarding and hoarding and hoarding, collecting and collecting and investing and investing and investing. It's a quickening, and it's got to be scary. Michael Henry's in tonight. Good to see you, Michael. Wow, be interested in Michael's thoughts on all of this stuff I'm saying. He's probably tearing, he's scratching his tail. Goodness knows. Michael Henry's saying on a £50 bottle, typically £19 to £20 is tax and duty, and £16 to £17 supply chain margin, leaving £13 to £15 for the producer, covering all costs and profit margin, which is then taxed. Perfect summary. So how then can we see an Old Pulteney 12 for £25 in your local supermarket? It can't be sustained, because the quality is going to suffer, because the company is going to suffer, because it just is not fair. That is not a fair price. So when I say a fair price, I'm not just talking about the opposite of overcharging, I'm talking about the opposite of undercharging. £50 bottle, £19 to £20 on tax and duty, £16 to £17 in supply chain, distribution, everything else. Obviously, depending on where it's going to go, that's going to change. £13 to £15. So Michael's given us a UK example there. Super fascinating. Anthony is saying, oops, why is it jumping so much tonight? Here I'm walking, I got that, sorry, that was Donald. And I missed Anthony. I was just about to take his chat. Maybe I picked it up. Maybe I did, Anthony. Maybe I picked up your chat. Helen is saying, is it me that's doing this to the chat tonight? Helen is saying, recently spent £60 on and bought an Alistair Walker 8-year-old Glenglassaugh single cask at 59.1%. A no-brainer, which we'd prefer. Wasn't tempted by the 12-year-old. Yeah, interestingly. I think, everything looked good. Everything looked, I was excited. I even like them. I actually quite like the bottle. It's a very, very attractive bottle, isn't it? I can imagine this could be fun for somebody like Doogie Crystal to take photos of, right? It's all of it was exciting and to celebrate. And I just looked at the presentation and I went, what's happening here? I just don't. I wonder what happened. Anyway, I've got one more to open. We can talk about some of your comments, and then we can kind of wind up and move towards our quiz at the end. I'm not suggesting that we'll make it under 2 hours. I know better than now, but we can try and keep it a wee bit neat tonight. Based on my, I'm not going to admit anything. Based on my health, based on the enjoyment that I had over the last couple of days, has left me a wee bit more tired than usual. Falsgraph is saying happy juices, hazy beers, hazy olive oil, all are signs of quality and naturalness. Why not with whiskey? Class, exactly. It's not. These are not difficult concepts to understand. Whiskey Games is saying, I feel like some guerrilla action is required. Print out some small stickers that say Barfly approved and start sticking them on integrity whiskey boxes and bottles in shops. The problem with that is, Matthew, is that they would know exactly where to come to shout at for such militant behaviour and things. Let's be fair about these things, but I do like the way you think. And Hoyt is saying, I'd gladly pay £100 for an old Pulteney 17. You and I both, if we got that same old quality of the past. And the whiskeyographer is saying, you've sold me on the Lagg Kilmory, about to crack my bottle. Go ahead, whiskeyographer, and tell me what you think about it. That's the Glenglassaugh. So I'm going to have a wee sip of this, the one that we chilled. Oh, sweet smoke. And I'm also loving the herbal note. It's been pointed out to us by, who was it that pointed that out? Rob Halford is saying, as my whiskey journey goes along this road, and independent bottlers recently are the only bottles that are grabbing my attention. But because of these demand dynamics, Rob, that is a threat. If we don't see cask trading, if we see people competing for resources, Diageo shutting down their Port Ellen maltings and only selling malt to other Diageo distilleries, if we see that happening, it will be choked and choked and choked. And we start to see people looking after themselves. We start to see much less collaboration, much less cask trading, much less openness. And we start to all suffer. Independent bottling will suffer. Believe me, buddy. You can't just drink from independent bottlers and expect everything to be fabulous. We need to be balanced. We need to reward primary producers, the ones that bring out the quality, of course. We need to see them fortify their success and endure. Alistair Gray's bought me a dram. Thank you so much, Alistair. He's saying body clock is still in US time, ready for the quiz. Good for you, buddy. I hope you enjoyed your time in the States. Anthony's saying, I have Macallan, Talisker, Bowmore, etc. on my shelf, but many moons ago, none will be replaced because of poor quality and price. I look for integrity these days or a fair price. Good for you, Anthony. And I think you've listed quite a few producers there that have just moved away. Bowmore is heartbreaking for me. The core range from Bowmore, with very few exceptions, the core range is just a pale imitation. It's a shadow of what they actually make at that amazing, legendary distillery. Whiskey Weekend Dram. It's an old Pulteney 18 was a good surprise for me, but a wee bit too expensive. They are out there. But if they price it wrong, if they get the pricing wrong, if they're a wee bit greedy, it gets talked about a wee bit less. Roy Evans is here. Good to see you. That Glenglassaugh bottle looks a bit like washing up liquid or Oasis juice. Open, pour, be yourself once more. I get where you're coming from, yeah. And it is kind of odd. It's almost like an optical illusion in a solid form, right? It's quite an interesting thing. But I do like it. I do quite like it. Some vibes of Fetter Cairn about it too. Excess to Scotch is here. I still have a closed bottle of Old Pulteney 17. I think the last Old Pulteney 17 I had went off to an event. It was a Barfly's event. It was a few years ago now, 2019. It got cracked and shared. We do miss it. So that's what I'm talking about. The Amber Rush is very much still happening in front of our eyes right now. It shows no end, but it's all based on forecasting. It's all based on the future, the future, the future. And the prices are based on pushing and pushing and pushing and seeing how much people are willing to pay. And because of the investment fervour, that's all playing into it. So the people pay and they pay and they pay. Look at Macallan 18 is £500 right now. Okay, some different luxury placement, product placement, things happening there. But it's absurd. It's utterly absurd. And only maniacs pay £500 for a Macallan 18. Very wealthy maniacs, but maniacs. It's maniacal behaviour to pay that for an 18-year-old malt whiskey, especially when it's presented at such low ABV and it's been filtered. Oh, sorry, I'm banging on. But this is we're dealing with these crazy times, so we need to take a different approach. We work together as a community, of course we do. We maintain that and go forward. But we need to look at the people that are bringing us the products, the good products today and in the future that are going to charge us fair prices for very, very good quality whiskey, made flavour first and selling it at fair prices. Lagg is in that category now. The inaugurals have gone. This is their core range now, £49. Glenglassaugh, fantastic, £50, £49.95. The same, but just missed out on the integrity offering there. And if they haven't, and if it is actually unchill filtered, if it is natural colour, what was the nervousness about putting it on the label? Because maybe it's from the same producer as Glendronach. Remember the Stushy a couple of years ago with that? Maybe it's a compliance issue. Why are we still... It doesn't need to be ambiguous. Just make a decision and do it properly. The smaller producers are out there are showing superb success doing it that way. Helen is saying, word I would use would be slightly stronger and much ruder than maniacs. Let's get ready to Roland is saying, I finished a bottle of Bowmore 15 Lamerick at 54.1, which I bought at €60. Such a pity they stopped bringing this kind of malts on the market. And Bowmore is going in the wrong direction for most of it. Sipping on a young Glenwivis tonight. Very enjoyable dram. That's a 2018, I hope. I agree with you fully. The tropical fruit on that dram for a young spirity product is ridiculous. We at pricey at £65, but I hope what we see with Glenwivis is as the future releases come out and they start to move towards what their core range is potentially going to be in the future, if they have such a thing, then maybe we see the prices come down to closer to that £50 target, right? I am a fan, Ben. I'm glad you are too. I enjoy it. MJ Rodden is saying, Brown Foreman have set their stall out with Glendronach. A fully natural Glenglassaugh would have been a change for them. There's too many short-sighted producers. A year like 1983 may return. Let's hope not, MJ. I would hate for that to be the case. So I'm going to open my last bottle with you all tonight from an integrity producer, a brand new distillery, and a distillery that started putting out the product, and it came out at round about the exact price I'm talking about, round about the £45-50 mark. Fantastic for 3-year-old. Then it became a bit more 4-year-old, and the price has remained the same. Quite a few releases coming out, seasonal releases and things like that, as they move towards what they're going to do with a core range going forward. But of course, I'm talking about Lochlea. You might remember that John Campbell was on the vPub a few weeks back. What do I have in my hands here? What's this new Lochlea? This is the 5th bottle of Lochlea that I own. I've got 5 bottles of Lochlea. Why have I got so much Lochlea? Why? Well, I'm interested in what they're doing. And I'm interested to... This is a privilege to be able, like the Lagg, like the Ardnamurchans and the Wolfburns and everything, a privilege to be able to taste the evolution, no pun intended, the evolution of these distilleries as they build their product going forward. I would love to go back to 1820 and sip 3- and 4-year-old Lagavulin, wouldn't you? But we're able to do that today with the new distilleries that's coming out. So what have Lochlea done with this one? Well, oh, very soft pop. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to improve on that, sorry. Last clean glass. What do we have here from Lochlea? Why I'm interested in this one? Well, this is their Cask Strength Batch 1. Single malt Scotch whisky, first fill bourbon barrels, all the Russia sherry casks, non-chill filtered in natural colour, 60.1% alcohol ABV, 60.1. That's all you need to know, right? There is some information in the back. Lochlea's an independent family-owned distillery in the heart of Ayrshire, Scotland. We grow our own barley, distill our own unique spirit, and mature all our casks on site. We are focused on crafting an outstanding whisky for everyone to enjoy. Our local ingredients, processes, and maturation combines to offer a distinctive style of single malt Scotch whisky that we love and hope you will too. This is the messaging you put on a bottle. This is how to endear your brand to people. Tell the truth. Don't flower it up. Lochlea are not talking about the local flora and fauna that's there. They're just being very direct. They're saying this. Do you think that by being transparent and open and direct like that is somehow alienating people that are just coming into whiskey? if they don't write about dolphins and gannets and things, do you think that they're excluding people coming into whiskey? I don't think so. Neither do you, I'm sure. Okay, cask strength. Sticking my nose right in, anaesthetizing the senses straight away, right? 60.1%, but very, very malty, very, very potent. It's quite a dark colour, a lovely dark colour for such a young whiskey. Very active casks, obviously. First fill bourbon, as it says, and sherry casks. But this is cask strength. How much are we talking about here? Cask strength, limited release, batch 1, £65. Ardnamurchan, cask strength, £60, £65. Core range, £45, £50. That's where we're at. Do you think Lochlea are making a loss? I don't think they've recouped their costs. Certainly not right now. Probably the prices that they're having to pay for fuel and everything else. At least they're growing their own barley, so potentially the barley can be a wee bit cheaper. Barley's hugely expensive right now. I don't think that they're making a loss. They're running a business. £50, £45, core range stuff. Special editions, cask strength, £60, £65. Does that seem expensive to you? Let's see what the flavour's like. There's lovely sherry notes on this too, but it's malty. It's still cereal. I'm still getting a lot of the kind of, and I hesitate to use the word farm because it's a farm distillery, so it's maybe in my head, but there is a sense of being in a farm environment. No bad thing. I mean that in a very positive way. Very communicative, very loud, very bold. It's the biggest hit I've had from any Lochlea. Vibrant spice, a bit of jagginess in there, a bit of heat. No smoke in this. No obvious smoke. It's going on forever. It's going on forever. This is a very, very specific experience. It's rich, but shouty. This is like malt whiskey on steroids. This is Lochlea with nitrates added. This is going to some lovely cherry dark notes on the finish there, some red fruit hanging about. This is going to take a bit of time with some water, just a few drops of water, bring it down a wee bit and play with it. The thing that cask strength whiskey can do so well, just bringing it down bit by bit and seeing where it starts to play at its best for you. Let's put this to the side and let it open up a wee bit. Daniel Williams is saying, why not give us both the whiskey info and the story about the fishes that love to frolic along the coast, or just call it Dolphin Smooth? Then we know what's what. That's another option. Rob Smith is saying, you had me at cask strength Lochlea. Well, it's out there. I mean, there's plenty of this around. I don't think this is, I mean, it might not be around forever, but I don't think it's particularly in such huge demand that you're having to go into ballots or anything for it. I ordered this at Greenwelly stop. I was passing the Greenwelly and I dropped in to collect it up. Same as the Lagg. I got the Lagg and the Lochlea at the same time. And I logged on and bought them and got them for collection. I don't think you're going to be under pressure. If it's in your market, of course. And if it's not, it will be coming. MG Rodden is saying, Brown Foreman, I did pick that one up. Not doing so well as with the comments tonight, am I? And Tim Hoekstra is saying 15,000 bottles. A very good outturn. A great outturn, Tim. But Lochlea's shipping to North America now. Shipping right across Europe. So I'm getting a lot of cherry menthol. Red, the fruits are red. There's a medicinal sweet in the UK called Tunes, cherry menthol flavoured Tunes. There's a wee bit of that here. Teeny wee bit of the whole menthol thing is leading me into green and mint and things. That's there too, but not overly. Everything about this whiskey is red. So for those of you that are kind of taste colour and things, This tastes to me like a very red whiskey. Peter Lee is saying, good evening, Roy. Good to see you, Peter. Just home and wanted to say thanks for making my birthday extra special with Kevin. It's a pleasure to you, Peter. I hope you're still celebrating, and I hope that you're not. It was quite a milestone, wasn't it? It was a big birthday. I hope it's not at any. Life begins at 50, Peter. Let's go with that. Good to see you in, buddy, and I hope you're doing well. It was a pleasure for me to be there. Thank you for the warm hospitality invite and delicious barbecue food. Helen is saying, just a thought, when will the Lagg Fest Facebook page go live? So it's not going to be a page, it's just going to be in the Barfly's page on Facebook, and I'm just going to put a post there just when I get around to it, when I know what I'm going to say and I know what I'm going to do when I get my head around it, Helen. It'll be soon. It'll certainly be before the summer break. 30th of September is the save the date for everybody. A whole bunch of Barflies are going to be get together. We're using the excuse that Jimmy's going to be in Scotland. We never thought that would happen. We never thought we'd convince Jimmy to make it across the Atlantic, but it's happening. So 30th of September. We've spoke to the Bon Accord. They're expecting us. Don't know how many it's going to be, which is why Helen's asking about the Facebook details. I'm going to put a thing in there to say, are you coming? And just say, yes, I'm coming, or no, I'm not interested, whatever. And that can give us a rough idea of numbers. Glenn Duncan is saying, good morning, Roy. Late start in the vPub. Big shout out to Peter Lee for sourcing me a Lochlea for Barflies. Peter Lee, a bit of a star, can help out other Barflies doing that very thing. Glenn Duncan, I'm glad you managed to get one. Good to see you in, and good morning to you. Helen is saying, going to be an epic evening. Fingers crossed, Helen, absolutely. And Donald Rance is saying, the other interesting question, what happens when the Japanese producers catch up? They have already caught up, that's the truth. There are inexpensive Japanese whiskies being released right now. Not necessarily here in the UK, but to the global markets. Catch up to the Irish producers, which are growing exponentially also, who can consume all of this whiskey. That exactly, Donald, is what I'm talking about when I talk about the concept of the amber rush. It is almost an inevitability. However, if we look after the producers that are doing things right, quality, flavour forward, integrity, and they are charging fair prices, if we look after them, by changing our thought, by being willing to pay a wee bit more for the quality and the natural presentation, by weaning ourselves off of the legacy brands that may have brought us into whiskey, that may have taught us how wonderful whiskey is, and then with fickle volatility just cut us by making it discontinued, by moving it to different markets, by putting it out of reach from a price point of view, or just by being lazy and letting their product become more and more dull and more neutered as the liquid that makes up the vatings becomes younger, and they make no effort to do anything to make any changes, that they just chase pure, cynical short-termism, efficiency over flavour, all of those things. Grain of Malt, James is saying, still planning to come over for it. That would be amazing, James, to welcome you in Glasgow with everybody else. Could be fantastic fun. Good stuff. There is a quiz at the end. I would like to tell you that it's easy. I would like to maybe warn you that it might be a bit difficult, but the truth is I made this quiz before I went away on a trip because I've only just arrived back today, which is why I'm a wee bit foggy and tired tonight. I hope it's not been obvious. So there is a quiz at the end. There's always a quiz at the end. It's always multiple choice, and it's going to be a memory jogger for me as much as anybody else. Greg Schwartz is in here. Greg, I'm so gutted that we never got a chance to meet up while you were here, buddy. It's really difficult just now. I know that we're all running about busy. I know that you're busy too, but it's nice to welcome you into the vPub. Buddy, I hope you're doing well. Daisy is here as well. Good to see you, Daisy. Hope you're keeping well. And Ben Demon Hunter is saying, never owned a bottle of Macallan, and only I have had one sample. If I never have a Macallan, it doesn't matter to me, Roy. Slancha. There you go. You don't need to adapt as much as some other folk, I guess. I would guess that for a lot of the folk out there in the community, certainly for the folk that hang out here in the vPub and in the lounge, there are very few bottles of Macallan on their shelf, and it's probably been like that for a long time. Daisy is saying she's strapped in for the quiz. Good for you. And Falscraft is saying around 2010, good alcohol to me was not more than 35 euros. These days it's more than 10 euros, at least more. Not too bad, I think. That's because you're part of the community that's good at digging it out and finding it. And you're also very fortunate, class, that you're in Germany. And you can get good prices. The taxation, everything, the distribution and things, everything seems to be fairly in check in the Netherlands, some certain parts of Central Europe and Germany. Maybe don't always have the choice, but you are very good at having fair pricing. I wish it was the same everywhere. Fairness, right? What price fairness? Okay. Thank you for indulging my wee rant. We remain very much in the throes of the Amber Rush. We're just going to need to watch it play out. But if we remain open-minded, if we remain curious, if we are ready to adapt and move away and not be stuck on brands and all of these things, then we're far less likely to be abused. That's my thoughts. Anyway, let's see. Let's bring in the quiz at the end. This is 15th of June. I guarantee you know it's not a week ago. That's me, obviously, in a hurry to get things ready early. I've not updated the date slide. It is the 22nd of June, and this is the correct quiz, I'm pretty sure. Good luck, everyone. Remember, our pass mark is always 5, and there may be some questions on theme, if I remember well. Let's roll straight into it, see how we're doing. Will that work? No, this is better, I think. Question 1. According to the Spirits Business Report, listen, that's an interesting report. I'm going to link it underneath if I haven't already, so you can go along and read that. It's just out, and it tells you about how amazing Scotch whisky and other whisky sectors are doing. It's absurd that most of the other whisky sectors are blowing up just as big as Scotch right now. According to the Spirits Business Report released, which of these statements is true? A, the exports broke 6 billion for the first time. I'm talking about Scotch whisky. B, exports of Scotch by volume rose by 21%. Or C, Johnnie Walker Scotch is whisky's biggest brand. Which of those statements is true? The A, exports broke 6 billion. Scotch whisky exports broke 6 billion value. Why can't I speak? For the first time ever. Or is it B, exports of Scotch by volume rose by 21%? Or is it C, that's Johnnie Walker remains Scotch whisky's biggest brand? James is saying good luck following the crowd is my advice. It's not a bad strategy. Watch out for the banana skins though. Anthony Lambert is spot on saying A, B, C. Absolutely right. Another freebie. I'm just trying to help everybody manage the heat right now of summer and be a bit more gentle with everybody. Everybody's on point. Nobody's going home with a donut tonight. Nobody goes home with a big fat 0. Question 2. How many distilleries are listed as operational in the 2008 Malt Whisky Yearbook? 2008 edition of the Malt Whisky Yearbook. How many operational Scotch malt whisky distilleries are listed? We did mention it earlier. Is it A, 93 distilleries, B, 99 distilleries, or C, 134? Not 2023 yearbook, not the 20. So the other yearbook I used, I didn't show you actually, is the 2013. That was the hard points that I chose tonight. Go all the way back to 2007. So that's the 2008 Malt Whisky Yearbook. Was it A, 93, B, 99, or C, 134? Absolutely spot on, everybody. Well done, Barflies. Well done, everybody, for remembering it is 93 operational distilleries. Question 3. If everything goes to plan, how many new Scotch malt distilleries will have been built since the year 2000 by the year 2030? You might have to remember the new distilleries vPub that I introduced to you all just a few months ago. We're looking for new distilleries built between the year 2000 and 2030 if everything goes ahead as planned. A, less than 50, B, around 50, or C, more than 70. I'm enjoying this Lochlea now with a wee bit of water in it, some toffee coming through, toffee caramel. Malt and oak forward. It's going to be nice to see how this whiskey matures generally. Lots of flavour in this. Big flavour punch. Lots of stuff happening. Very decent effort. Everybody is saying more than 70. Absolutely spot on. We worked out that there were in excess of 70 new distilleries in those 3 decades. Incredible after I've just told you there were only 93 back in 2007. So if you answered C, give yourself a point. Move into question 4. Hope you're all doing well. There's going to be lots of 100%. First half of the quiz tends to be a wee bit easy these days. Question 4, Pernod Ricard is the second largest producer of Scotch malt with 72 million litres per annum of capacity across its distilleries. What size, therefore, is Diageo? Pernod Ricard is the second biggest. Diageo is the biggest. 72 million litres for Pernod Ricard. How big is Diageo? 90 million litres per annum. 100 million litres per annum or 120 million litres per annum. A, 90, B, 100, or C, 120. If it helps, on question 4, Pernod Ricard have a dozen distilleries, 12 distilleries still. Most of them in Speyside. Scapa is the only one that's not in Speyside. Diageo have 29. Remember, I'm talking about malt distilleries, Jimmy Lagg. So, yeah, you might be right. It's more than that if you include their share in North British and Cameron Bridge Grain Distillery. It would potentially be more, but you're all spot on again. Excess to Scotch is so confident. 4 out of 4, celebrating, saying C, it is 120 million litres. Been nice and easy so far. Now we start to fight to get us through over the second half of the quiz and pass the ass hat at the end. See who can keep it intact. We're looking at a mash tun. It clearly says mash tun. Cast iron mash tun looks to be open top. Where are we? A, Glenturret. Let's see if I can do this a wee bit better. B, Springbank, or C, Bruichladdich. Are we at A, Glenturret, B, Springbank, C, Bruichladdich? Gonna get crunchy, says Helen. The tortuous picture question, says Jimmy Legg. Sugar Kitty's saying, seen this pic before. Oh. We can thank our resident photographer, Graham Fraser, for fueling me with wonderful pictures to use every week. Jimmy Legg is saying, I know that shovel. Everybody seems to think that we're looking at Springbank. Well, we had the mash house at Glenturret on very recently, and it looked a bit different from this. Bruichladdich is an open top mash tun, but it does not look like this. We are indeed down in Campbelltown, and we are indeed looking at the working museum of whisky that is Springbank. Alistair Gray saying, Graham Fraser, do you get royalties for these photos? He gets thanks from me. That's what he gets. He's a superstar, our Graham. The amount of knowledge that's in the man's head, quite incredible. Pass mark for Tim Hoekstra. Look at all the pass marks. Daisy, Andrew Pearce, Justin Wan, Alan McLaughlin, Elswood, Dogs of No Uncle's Colin, Bruno Martins, all of you, absolutely all of you are on a pass mark tonight. Nice, easy session. Exactly what the doctor ordered after such a busy week for me. Question 6. Starting to get tricky today. Glenord is Diageo's largest distillery by capacity after Roseisle. What has been its growth since 2007 in litres per annum? I did share it. Glenord went from 3 million litres to 5 million to 11 million. Or it started at 5, went up to 6, and then to 7. Quite steady growth. Or was it 5 to 10 to 18 million? Astronomical, 5, 10, 18 for C. Steady, B, 5, 6, 7. Or fast, just plain old fast, A, 3 to 5 to 11. I did share these stats. It's quite incredible, right? We think of Glenord, we think about the Singleton of Glenord, the Singleton brand. But Diageo are actually a blending company. That's what they do. They make malt whiskey to support super brands like Johnnie Walker. Tim Hoekstra is saying A, but it's up to 12 already. Even bigger again. 12 million litres at Glenord today. Absolutely, Tim. A is the right answer. 3 to 5 to 11 based on the Malt Whisky Yearbook. So if you answered A, that 13-year-old Glenord signature vintage dram was a peach. That's the thing we still enjoy. We're not having a go at distilleries here. They make fantastic whiskey. It's often the way that it's bottled that causes the problem. Question 7. Diageo have 29 malt distilleries, but how many are tiny? How many are smaller than 1 million litres per annum? How many of Diageo's 29 distilleries are smaller than 1 million litres per annum? A, none, B, 1, or C, 3? Sugar Kitty, astronomical. Klitzt is a new name. It's nice to welcome you in here. A former Diageo ambassador I met at a tasting said they were a blend company that happened to make single malts. So true. It's a little bit the quip that's often said about Macallan, that it's a marketing company that happens to make whiskey. Maybe a bit cynical to say these things, but there's so much truth in it. Nice to welcome you in, Klitz. I hope that's the right way to pronounce your name. And I think it's the first time I've welcomed you here. Move back to the Glenglassaugh with a wee bit drip of water in it. I have to say, look at this. It's clouding up. Can we see that? The Glenglassaugh in the glass with water added is clouding up. There is a chance that actually, despite this being at 45%, that it's very softly, sympathetically filtered. I can tell you, Fernando's saying Oban, Lochlea, and I forgot the other. So Fernando's going with 3. Most of the crowd is going with 3. I can tell you you're spot on, Fernando. Oban, Lochlea, and Brora. All less than 1 million litres per annum. So there you go. The biggest malt distiller, the big malt juggernaut giant that is Diageo, have 3 pretty tiny little distilleries. Oban is restricted by size. Lochlea has always been their smallest, but Brora, their newest, brought back to life distillery, is currently sub 1 million litres. I think it's 800,000 capacity. I don't know how much they're actually making right now. Question 8. Springbank's capacity is 750,000 litres. What was it back in 2007? So what Springbank's quoted capacity has been is one thing. What they are making is something completely different. 750,000, what was it back in 2007? Was it about a third? Or was it B, about half? Or was it C, about the same? I think we're going to see a fest of 10 out of 10s tonight. A festival. Wouldn't that be nice if loads and loads of folk... Jimmy Lagg is Brora Distilling? Absolutely, Brora's Distilling. I'd love to tell you more about it, Jimmy, but I'm not paying £150 to tour. They are telling me that it's not for me already, before they've even got any mature product. £150 just to have a look-see. It's, I understand what they're doing, I understand what they're coming from, I understand all of it, I understand the model. But I cannot pay £150 just to get a look in a distillery. Maybe it's because they're offering pours of Brora as you do the tour, of course. But yeah. Everybody says C, it's about the same. You're absolutely right. Go back to 2007's Malt Whisky Yearbook, 750k. 2012's and everyone in between, 750k. Absolutely about the same. Lol, you may get a discount if you tell them your great-grandfather used to work there. That's right, that wonderful image you sent me, Jimmy. Quite incredible. Quite incredible. Question 9, second from last. We've got some really healthy scores tonight. Really healthy scores. Lots of 1 or 2 wee banana skins have been picked up. Danny Keenan, Bruno Martins, Daisy. Few have slipped up, but generally everybody's intact. This is going to be a record-breaking night tonight. I can guarantee it. Question 9, not easy. Which of these distilleries has grown the most in terms of capacity? These are the questions that Jimmy Lagg normally hates. But I wanted to focus on the scale of distilling in Scotland right now, and this is happening the world over. A, Glenglassaugh has grown the most in terms of capacity. B, Glenfarclas has grown the most, or C, Glenord. Pierre is saying apparently Brora is able to charge that ridiculous amount of money. Must be idiots that actually pay it. Jimmy Lagg is saying I would have said Macallan has grown the most in terms of capacity. Justin Wan is saying that banana skin. Yes. Don't worry about it, Justin. Go with it. Percentage-wise or actual litres. Most of the questions tonight has been on my research, which has all been based on litres per annum, big guy. But in this context, also percentage would be appropriate as well. I can tell you that you've all nailed it. So many of you are on 9 out of 9 tonight. This is going to be brilliant to see. Glenord. I explained to you earlier that Ord has grown from 3.2 million litres in 2007 to 5 million litres in 2012 to 11 million litres, making it Diageo's biggest distillery after their new distillery of Rose Isle up in Speyside. Look at all the 9 out of 9s. This is fabulous to see. Fabulous to see Ben Demon Hunter, Jimmy Lagg, Tim Hoekstra, Andrew Pierce, Steve Atkins, Aris Moose. Good to see Aris and Steve. Good to see Andrew as well. Hellas Wood. Where's Roy? Roy Ovimera is going for C. He's correct again. So we've got 9 out of 9s all over the board tonight. Terrific stuff. Fernando's saying I'm nervous. As we go into the ass hat tonight, now bear in mind, the ass hat is meant to be deliberately obnoxious. It's meant to trip up and trick everyone. Tonight is maybe a bit of a different vPub. I can't make all the vPub bleak and worrying and anxiety laden. Let's see what we've done for the ass hat at the end this week. Question 10. One of the 134 operational distilleries, of the 134 operational distilleries listed in 2022, how many are small distilleries less than 1 million litres? How many of those 134 are producing less than 1 million litres? Is it A, about the same as Diageo and Pernod Ricard combined? So I've already told you Diageo had 29, so I'm helping you out there. And I told you that Pernod Ricard had 12. B, is it about the same as the number of English malt distilleries currently in operation? Or is it C, about the same as the amount of Irish malt and pot still distilleries currently in operation? Fernando saying, Aquaviti, can't the ass hat be like question 1, where we give everybody a point, Fernando? Alistair Gray saying, too many 10 out of 10s. Need another quiz right after to settle it. Maybe we can settle it next week, big guy. Maybe we can. There's going to be quite a lot of 10 out of 10s tonight, isn't there? So I'm asking you about distilleries that are less than 1 million litres capacity, of which Springbank, of course, is one. Royal Lochlea, Oban, Brora, the ones we've already mentioned. So we're talking about the same number as Diageo and Pernod Ricard combined, or about the same number as existing English distilleries, or about the same as Irish distilleries. Anthony Lambert saying, oh crap, B. Jimmy Legg is saying, please B. A big shout out to Fernando. You can have your wish, big guy. All of these are true. Everybody gets the ass hat tonight. It'll probably never ever happen again. But I wanted to bring a positive spin to things. And I wanted to close out by making everybody understand and realize that we have loads and loads of really small distilleries that bodes very well for the future. But the nervy thing here is that in England they have the same amount, and in Ireland they have the same amount, and in every country, we talked about France, 120 distilleries, all fairly small, looking after mostly domestic product. We have to see that this amber rush is not, despite the focus of the vPub tonight, it is not exclusive to Scotland. This is happening the world over. It's happening everywhere. Let's see How many 10 out of 10s we can celebrate tonight? Hellswood, 10 out of 10. Congratulations. Tim Hoekstra on a 10. Fantastic. He's celebrating. Justin Wan is celebrating as well. Jimmy Legg, 2. Fantastic. Andrew Pears, it's been a while on a 10 out of 10. Congrats. Anthony Lambert, my very first 10. I love you, Roy. Love you all. Fantastic. Do a Scottish celebration. Take your t-shirt off and do laps of the dining room table. Run around your living room, whatever it takes. Aris Moose is celebrating 10 out of 10. Andrew Hammaker is celebrating 10 out of 10. Sugar Kitty, 10. You're a fine man, Roy Duff says to Whiskey and Wine Trails Tom. Graham Fraser is saying 10 out of 10. Jimmy Paul is, this is great. Sid Martin, 10. Well done to the folks on 10, says Alistair Gray. My second 10 ever, says Jimmy Legg. Congratulations on both, Jimmy. MJ Rodden, 10. Fantastic. Whiskey with Molly. Happy birthday, Steve Atkis. Oh, wow. Let's raise a wee glass to Barfly, Steve Atkis, and say, I don't know what age, which one it is today, buddy, but many happy returns to you, Steve. Happy birthday, buddy. Fantastic, Steve. I hope you managed a 10 out of 10 on your birthday. Papa Q is celebrating 10 out of 10. Rob Smith, so many. I'm not going to be able to shout everybody out. That's my birthday wish granted with a 10 out of 10 for Peter Lee. Fantastic. That must ring the bell curve, says James Morgan. Oops, and it jumps. Fernando's celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 5 months and saying thank you, Roy. Fantastic, Fernando. And Jimmy Legs bought me a dram. I'll give you $10 for that 10th question. You're a beauty, Roy. I'm glad you took it in that spirit. I'm glad all of you took it in that spirit. Sometimes in the vPub, we have to kind of do things that might seem a wee bit negative. It might seem like we're leaning on the negative things and we're whinging about prices and not being able to buy things and all of these things. But I always want there to be a positive. Whiskey is also always supposed to be fun. This is what we do for a break. This is what we do to escape. This is what we do to indulge. This is what we do to treat ourselves. So it's to always try and bring a positive spin and look for the optimism in things, right? Glass half full, let's say. And I wanted the quiz at the end to be a wee bit light-hearted, especially since it was so heavily loaded with capacity questions. Scale, 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 scale. That's the point I wanted to hammer home with the quiz at the end, just to put everything into perspective. The size of what we're talking about here. The future is super bright. The future, if you're a drinker, if you're an enthusiast, if you're an enjoyer, a sharer, if you're an investor, maybe it's difficult for you. If you're married to certain brands and if you allow yourself to be caught up in the branding and the collecting and things, then the future could be a wee bit risky for you, sure. But if you're just here to enjoy it as a organic product that makes you enjoy life better, then I think we're relatively safe. Fernando, no need, my friend, but you bought me a very generous dram as well, probably celebrating the fact that you said, please, can the ass hat be a freebie tonight? And it was, Fernando. How very well predicted by you, my friend. Cheers. Thank you for the dram. Graham Fraser saying, thanks for promoting Barfly Harmony in the quiz, Roy. Terrific, Graham. Thanks very much for being in. This means I get an extra dram tonight. Superb. Says, who was that? Rob Smith. Enjoy your extra dram, Rob. I hope it's a good one. Excess to Scotch is saying, you're great, Roy. Celebrating his 10 out of 10 still. Danny Keenan is saying, enjoyed catching a vPub live as I'm usually working. Really enjoyed tonight. Cheers. Thank you, Danny. Thank you so much. Remember to hit the like button if you have enjoyed it, anybody that's enjoyed tonight, because it was a kind of crunchy, quite a heavy topic. The reason I've held off 3 years, obviously, doing it again, because I felt the last time we covered the Amber Rush, it was also quite a heavy thing. But it's nice to do it now and again. That's why I've tried to add kind of lighter elements into things. And Walt, Whiskey Malt Content reviews, fantastic. So good to see you, Vlad. Good to see you back again. Thanks for another great vPub, Roy. Thanks for the dram, Vlad. It's wonderful to welcome you back in. Chris Pollack is saying, enjoyed your rant, even the quiz. Thanks, Roy. A little reminder, though, recycled review. Maybe it'll be your summer treat, Chris. Maybe it'll be your summer treat. And Hellswood is saying, great vPub this evening. Cheers, Roy, as always. Listen, thanks to you all. I did not make it less than 2 hours. I never make it less than 2 hours. But thank you, despite me being tired and a wee bit fatigued after a fantastic time away, honestly, over the last couple of days. And if you're a patron, you will get news of a super exciting thing that I'm building, working on. And you'll get heads up. Of course you will. And you'll see why I'm so tired. You'll understand why I'm so tired after the trip away this week, but it was fantastic. Peter Lee's bought us a dram to say cheers to you and all the Barflies. I have Dan Dawkins and Danny Keenan over the next 2 weeks. Fantastic, Dan and Danny. I hope you both enjoy being around, and I hope you enjoy the hospitality that always comes from Peter Lee. Fantastic, Peter. Thank you very much for the dram. Cheers to you, buddy, birthday boy. Hope Steve Atkins got his birthday wishes too. I'm going to raise this glass. What am I going to do? I'm going to go into this. Let's go into this wee drop of Lagg that's been sitting. It's clouded up nicely. It's gone almost quite milky now in colour. This is definitely a non-chill filtered product. Very sweet smoke now as well. I'm going to enjoy what's left of these couple of drams. I've really not poured much tonight as well. It's because I've had my whiskey ration this week already, believe me. Thank you all for joining me for another vPub. I look forward to welcoming you back next week for the second last vPub before the summer break. In the meantime, I'll raise this glass to you just now. Remind you all that you're very dearly loved. Thank you for your patience, attendance, positivity, wonderful welcome in nature and everything tonight. And I'll see you all back here again next week. Sláinte mhath, whiskey folk.